Hello. A question I get frequently from borrowers who are trying to negotiate a loan modification directly with their bank is, what is going on? What is the process, right? We know from our other videos that to kind of kick off the loan modification process, a borrower is required to submit an application and they're required to submit a financial package. If you have questions about, what's required to submit or what you need to do with those documents, there are other videos on this page that will help you there. The purpose of this video is to just kind of break down what the process is once you actually send those documents in. So again, all lenders, all investors are different. Your particular bank might be doing something different. I'm just going through very high level, broad, general information for some of the bigger servicers. Generally, when you apply for a loan modification, it goes through kind of two main phases. And this video is just going to describe phase one. Phase one is what I call the document review phase. Phase two is what I'll call underwriting, and there will be a separate video here. But the document review phase is what happens when you send in your document package. Typically, banks will assign a person to the file that's called a document processor. They can also be called a customer relationship manager, a single point of contact, or it just gets assigned to an asset manager. Those are all synonyms for the same thing typically, which is the person on the front end that is reviewing your documents. What's important to understand about this process is they're not reviewing the actual numbers on the documents. They're not reviewing any of your debt to income ratios. They're not looking at your income. They are reviewing to make sure that everything that is needed in order to have a complete package is there. The word, the phrase, whatever you want to call it, the thing you're striving for in loan modification review is to get your file deemed complete, meaning you're getting the bank to say this is a complete file. Many homeowners get stuck in a document collection phase where things are getting requested, the bank doesn't request things all at once, or they request something that doesn't exist, the borrowers don't know what to do. And so many borrowers who apply for modifications get stuck in what they call this never-ending document craziness process. So I'm going to try to just kind of tell you what the document processes are doing and then give you 6 tips to kind of help you make it through this document collection phase. So the document processors, these people who get assigned right when you send in your financial package, they typically do 3 things. First, they upload the documents. So you can kind of think of what's happening on the lender's end as just a big computer system. They have your file there. They have to click something that says they're going to open modification review. And then they have to actually put the documents that you send in into the exact slots, into the exact spaces in the computer system to indicate to everybody who's going to be processing this modification request that you're requesting documents. So they have to take what you sent in, whether you sent it in via fax or email, and they have to kind of put it in these slots. The second thing that they do is they review everything that's required to make sure that everything is complete. So they're looking at a list that says pay stubs, bank statements, tax returns, and they're kind of taking the documents you sent in and placing them in these slots. And then the third thing they're doing is after they've placed everything that you've sent in into these slots, they're reviewing the file as a whole to see if there are any missing items. If there are missing items, then they create what's called a missing document list. And various lenders do different things. They'll either mail you the list, or they'll attach a note to the file and start calling you to tell you, or they'll email you, or they'll upload this missing document list to your lender profile. There's many different ways that they communicate that to you. But the document processors, they put everything you sent in the system, and then they kind of tell you what's still needed and still missing. As you can imagine, there are a lot of problems that pop up at this phase. One of the main problems I see is that document processors continue to request things that don't exist. They are not always trained in the best possible way. It's not their fault. They just don't always have all the information. And so one thing that I see a lot is, for example, with pay stubs. If they're uploading a file, they have a slot that has to have a pay stub in there in order for them to deem the file complete. Now, if you're a borrower who doesn't receive pay stubs because you get paid in some other way, like self-employment income or social security income or disability income, you're not going to be able to send in a pay stub. And so a common mistake that we see being made is lenders will deem a file incomplete because they aren't able to satisfy this request for pay stubs. And so that's one big thing I see causing problems for borrowers is files are deemed incomplete, but the things that are being requested don't exist. This also happens with bank statements. Some homeowners don't have bank statements. You can still apply for a modification without a bank statement. But if that bank statement slot cannot get filled with the documents you sent in, document processors will often label the file as incomplete, and then they'll send you a missing document list. So the question becomes, how do you fix this problem? You send in what's called a letter of explanation. And a letter of explanation is where you write out that you do not have the particular documents being requested. If you don't receive pay stubs, you should write out, I do not receive pay stubs. If you don't have bank statements, you should write out, I don't receive bank statements. If you haven't filed your taxes for the most recent year, you should write that out and tell the bank. And you should send that in with your original document package. What this will do is it will provide the document processor something that they can upload into that slot to keep the process moving forward. There's more information about letters of explanations on this YouTube channel. I plan to make a few more. But basically, if you know you have something that does not exist, that is a required part of the financial package, you need to tell the bank in writing that it doesn't exist. It's not enough to just not send it in, and that is probably the main thing that causes a bunch of these delays. Other problems that document processors make from time to time is they upload the wrong thing into the wrong section. So they might upload your bank statements into your pay stub section, and so it'll show that you actually don't have pay stubs when you've sent them in, right? They might switch them. And so sometimes you see missing document lists coming forward of things that you have already sent in, and that can be really frustrating, right? You're like, why are you saying I didn't send this in? I sent this in. The best thing you can do is just understand that this is something that happens, and then do everything you possibly can to just send them back what they need as soon as you can. So those are kind of the main problems, but I'd like to just go through 6 things that will help you make it through this document collection phase as fast as possible. Number 1 of the 6 things is call your lender regularly for updates. Regularly right now, with the hold times and with COVID and everything, should be a minimum of every 72 hours. Basically, once you send in your financial package, you want to be talking to your lender often, and you want to be asking them good questions. Good questions are questions like, is my file complete? If it's not complete, what documents are missing? If it's not complete, you want to ask them, when was the last date that this file was worked? You want to be getting all the information that you can about what the documents are that are missing, and you want to be making sure that the lender is continuing to work the file. So it's not going to work for you to just send in a financial package to a big bank, hope that they do everything correctly. You need to call, you need to keep yourself informed. By keeping yourself informed, then you'll be able to quickly send back the documents that they're showing is missing, or fill in those gaps with letters of explanation. Number 2 thing you can do is to make sure you take personal responsibility for your documents that will expire. So I've said this in previous videos, but in order to keep a loan modification package basically current with the bank, you need to always be keeping 30 days worth of pay stubs and about 60 days worth of updated bank statements with the bank. So if you send in a completely current financial package, but it takes the bank 3 weeks or so to complete the file, you will likely have another pay period or potentially another bank statement period coming up within the period that they're reviewing the documents. And so a common problem I see from borrowers is they send everything in on the date that they send it in, it's current, but then as these documents start to expire, right, then the lender finally reviews them and says they're missing 30 days statements. Then what'll happen is, if it takes a while for you to get that information, you'll send them the pay statement they need, but then that amount of time causes another pay period to become due. And so you really want to prevent yourself from getting trapped in this never-ending cycle of requests and then things being not current by just making sure that once you start your loan modification review, every 30 days, or not every 30 days, sorry, every pay period or every time you have a new bank statement come due, you take responsibility yourself to send them in so that your package doesn't expire and so that the bank doesn't make a missing documents list that includes something that's not current. The other kind of side note is, right, it takes them a while to review. So you have to always think that things are going to take banks like 1 or 2 weeks to look at stuff. It's not like there's a person on the other end just waiting to just work on your file. They're busy. And so it's your job to make sure your pay stubs stay current, your bank statements stay current. If you're someone who receives like a monthly pension statement from a pension income, make sure it stays current so that they don't expire. Number 3, make sure you fill in your documents correctly, or do everything you can to make sure you fill in your documents correctly. I've got individual videos on this YouTube page about kind of what the bank is looking for, how to fill them in correctly, and kind of what the different boxes on some of the more complicated forms mean. So go through those individual document videos, set yourself up to get everything complete and filled in as much as you can when you submit it at the outset. That will really help with some of the incomplete problems. Number 4, submit your documents in a format that works for the bank. And what I mean by that is try to submit them in PDF file format, not Word document format. Word documents can often get jumbled when they're faxed or emailed, and they become editable, and sometimes it just slows everything down because the lender kind of has to turn them into PDFs in order to be able to upload them in the system. So do yourself a favor, try to submit PDF files, make sure you fax or you email to the correct place. I always recommend that you fax or email your documents just for time's sake. If mailing is your only option, you might want to see if there's a FedEx, UPS, or some sort of office store in your area that can help you fax, but submit them quickly and submit them in a PDF format. And then make sure you sign with wet signatures, your documents that require a signature. Some banks will take electronic signatures, some only want wet signatures. And so because, this is just general advice, do yourself a favor and send in wet signatures every single time so that your documents don't expire or they don't get deemed incomplete because you don't have wet signatures. Tip number 5, don't send things that aren't necessary. So a lot of borrowers will kind of put together the required financial package and then they'll shove a bunch of other documents that they think the bank wants to see. This, while it's helpful and it's showing that you're proactive and you care about the process, this can actually slow everything down, because what you're forcing the document processors on the other end to do is to kind of sift through a large package, get rid of the things that they don't want, and make them find the things that they do want. There is some video here about generally what's required for a loan modification package, but again, talk to your lender first, get them to give you a full list of what's needed, and then only send them those things so you don't slow yourself down by over providing. And then number 6, I've already mentioned this here, but it's letters of explanation. Make sure that for any required thing that you don't have, and you don't have it because it doesn't exist, make sure you tell the bank in writing that it doesn't exist. And that will do that. That will help you so much, because that will do that process. Well, they'll be able to take your letter of explanation and actually upload it to the slot in the system. And that will help flip the file from an incomplete status to a complete status. Once you are through this document collection process or this document review process, your modification package will then be moving to phase 2, which I'm calling like underwriting. There's going to be another video here. There should be another video at this point about kind of what you can expect from phase 2. So check that video out, and good luck with your documents.